Hello friends, welcome. Friends, as you might have already noticed that I do a lot of visualization work with Tableau and use raw data to do visualization so that the information can be presented in a particular format which is easy for analysis and decision making, both from the point of view of business or any kind of policy making decision that you want to take. These tools are become very useful. So today what I was doing was I was working on a RBI recent data sets which was published as State Finance, a study of budget. So I extracted out this table which is called Appendix Table to Devolution and Transfer of Resources from the center. Now you might see that all these data sets are in PDF form. They are not given in Excel form, right? So what you typically do, you convert this into Excel using standard Adobe tool. So I have also converted into Excel using standard Adobe tool. So before I show you the conversion version of the data set, I am going to show you the file how it looks, right? Once you have downloaded, the file will look something like this. This is how the file will look. So you can see that there are various columns, and then there are information which are provided in each and every individual columns, right? So you need to convert this into Excel sheet, and then finally it will be used for your processing. So once I did the conversion, the file actually came out looking like this. So let me just zoom a little bit so that you can get a better picture as to what the file, how the file looks. So you'll notice here that the same table which you saw, Appendix 2, right? We have the column. This is the column here, the first column. You'll find the first column is all jumbled up. Means they are not mapped to the individual, they are not mapped to the individual rows, right? So these are all jumbled up. You can see. So the column is all jumbled up. Now, when you process this, you will not be able to get any meaning because these are mapped to individual column, because you can very clearly see that there is a separator line here in Excel sheet, these separator lines. But here you will not find any separator lines, right? They are all jumbled up. Now you try whatever you want. Let me challenge you that the file will always get converted into this if it has not been properly formatted while printing in PDF. This is the problem with the PDF format. You actually sometimes get these kind of issues. So there are two different, the pages actually are giving similar output. See? So the first page you see here, and the second page is also similar, and the third page is further complicated. It is all messed up because all the columns are jumbled up, right? Because you don't see any separator here. You see, third page. So how do you deal with a data set like this? And that is why I am bringing out this video before you. So anybody who is interested in understanding how to deal with this data and how to convert it into a form which you can use for processing easily, is the purpose of this video. So let me take you through individual step. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go straight to my Jupyter lab, worksheet, and then I'm going to do one by one and tell you how to process this data. And this is going to be live, right? So you don't have to worry about this, and you can go through each and every individual step with me. So the first step is basically to do what? The first step, I am importing all the libraries. Very simple. I am importing pandas, then I am importing OS. OS is basically to do some changing of my directory where the file is loaded. So for that, if you want to do some folder path change, that is possible using OS. So this is what my path is, and this is my this is the change directory I'm doing, right, for OS. And then we have NumPy, and then RE and warnings. So, it is not very important. Then what I have done before I start, I define the columns of the data frame. As you see, the data frames have columns, right? So these columns are static columns. So I can define these columns very easily. So very simple. Anybody can do it. So I actually have done what? Define this column as a first step. And then I have changed my folder path and gone to the location where the file is located, and I'm reading this file here, right? And then I have done simple processing of this file. So let me do this following. Let me just comment all this, and I'm going to show you after running how the raw file looks after processing, right? After the first round of processing. So I'll just um, show you the file. So this is how the file looks. So what I've done, I have processed the file till here. I've read the Excel file. So once I've read the Excel file, you'll see that the file is all rubbish all over the place. It is so unstructured that you can't do anything about it. And you can notice here that column which I showed you, this one, this particular column. This column you can see here is all jumbled up here, right? Because they are all null here down below. Similarly, you can see that the next data frame also, the next page also the same here. And for the third one, everything is jumbled up in one single row, right? So you have to deal with a situation like this. You cannot do it with using normal Excel. One way is there, I'll tell you later, which is a little very odd way of doing it, but it is not very structured, very nice, right? So this is the way. This is the first step, right? Now let me just delete this cell. Then what we do is we simply drop rows and columns which are all null, right? So this is the next step. So once I've run this and I just take you through the data frame again, so you'll see that it becomes a little cleaner. May not be very. Some of the null columns are removed. Some of them are still there because there is nothing much has happened. Then what I'm going to do is that I'm going to remove this particular column because this column is completely unnecessary, because I don't have any marker here, right? I need a marker, and I'll explain to you why I need a marker. So I'll remove this column, which is simple by starting from column 1 to the end, and all the rows here. So you see all the rows and all the columns. The columns, first column I have taken away, and then I'm going all over towards the end. That's why I start with 1 instead of 0 here, right? So if I let me just do this. So if I now press I run this cell and then I run it, you'll find that the first column is gone, right? And now we have the first column as we're starting with this particular value, which is a marker 1, which I'm going to use for my processing, because you'll notice that marker 1 is common for all the 3 pages, right? So what I'm going to do next is that I'm going to basically find out the index of this marker, right? So here I go and I'll find out the index. Index means what? What is the value here, index value, which I'm going to use to segregate these pages into 3 data frames, right? So these are the index values, right? 22 and 43. So how do I find index value? I simply do let me just break it into simple pieces so that you understand. So this is what the larger line is. So I'm going to break this into individual pieces so that you can see how it is running, right? I'll remove index, and then what I'm going to do is that I'm going to basically remove this also, right? And I'm going to simply run this portion, right? And I'll also remove this true, right? So what you will see here, sorry, what happened? Okay, so there is a problem here. Okay, so when I run this, you will notice that, oh, sorry, this cannot be, I need to basically get the first column. Oh, sorry, because what I have done is, so let me just remove this also. Then you will understand what is going on. I'll remove this also, right? And I'm going to start with the first column. Now, what is this DF columns? 0 means I'm basically looking at the first column. What is this? Unnamed 1, right? The first column is unnamed 1, like this, right? This is the first column. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to basically just encapsulate the data frame, right? DF on first column, right? So whatever data frame I have in the first column, so the first column is going to basically show up. You see the first column is showing up. This is the first column which shows up. Then I'm going to check for 1, right? Because this is the marker which I'm going to use, right? I'm going to check for 1. So what I'm going to do here is very simple. Then I'm going to say str, right? .str, and then I'll say contains, and then I'm going to look for 1, right? So once I look for 1, it will give me true and false statement. You see, true and false statement. Where there is true, it will give true. Where there is false and there is nothing, it will give NA and NaN. Then I'm going to look for true because I want the index, so I have to look for true. So once I say true, then what will happen? The rest will become false, and only those places where the index is 1 will become true, right? Can you see that? Now what I want to do now, this is basically a true and false, a Boolean column or a list or a column which is true and false, which I can use for filtering this whole data frame. So when I filter this data frame, what will happen? You'll see. I'll say simply run. Then you'll see that only those columns with the marker which is going to get extracted out. These rows, not columns, those rows. See, 2 is getting extracted out, 23 is getting extracted out, and 44 is getting extracted out, right? And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to simply say index here, right? So once I say index, you'll see the index is basically throwing up here, and I'm going to convert this into a list, right? So it's very simple, to list. So when I converted this into a list, so this becomes a list. So this I have stored here. So now you understand when I've broken it into pieces. So why I'm going to use this to split the data frame into 3 data frames. So what I'm doing, I am basically just marking this because this is a list now. So this is the list. So let me just show you how this list looks here. So I'm going to paste here, Control V, and then this is there. So if I use 0 here, then I'm going to get the first element 2. So I'm putting first element 2 here. And then I'm putting the next element 1 here. So the next is 23. 23 is getting put here. And then I'm subtracting 2 because there are certain padding which I'm going to remove. And this is basically the rows, and then columns. There are all columns. And then I'm just processing it, doing some kind of processing, dropping all NA axes which are all null axes which are all over the place, and just checking whether there are any axes which are any rows which are all nulls, and then resetting the index and setting it to true means I'm just resetting the index. This is just not very important, but the most important thing is you need to understand this particular piece, right? So when you run this, what happens is that I'm going to show you. So when I'm running this, after having done this, let's say I run this. So I'll just show you one of the data frame, df1. So once df1, you can see the df1 looks something like this. Still, the first column is all jumbled up, right? Rest of the data frame, you can see very clear. The first, the cell is all jumbled up. This should have been spread out here. These are all jumbled up here. Rest you can see. Similarly, you can see df2 also. You can see the same situation here. You see, and then the df3, which I showed you, is everything is all jumbled up into the first row, right? So then, after that, what I do, after having done this, following this step, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to carry out this step, which is extracting the description in the first column as individual list. Now, what does it mean? Basically, what I'm doing is, again, I'm going to go step by step, right? So, let's look at the main data frame, df, right? The main data frame looks like something like this. So, what I need this particular cell. I need to extract out this cell. So how do I extract out this cell? I know the index of this cell, right? So I'll do iloc, and then I'm going to basically do index of this cell. Index is what? Index. Then I know it is stored in list, and then I'm going to do 0. So this is the row which I want to target. This is the row, right? Sorry. This is the row I want to target, the 2 row. And then what I want to do, I'm going to say all columns. So once I do this, what will happen? I'll get this, right? Something like this I'll get, right? And then what I want to do is, actually I don't want the full columns. I want only the first column, right? So I'll say 0. So I'll get, when I say 0, I'll get this, right? Can you see this now? This is what I'm going to get. So this is what I'm interested in. Now I want to split this into a list. So how do I do the splitting? So because you know that each and every element has a new line character here, right? This is a simple text. This is nothing but a text, right? One single line. So you can split a text using a command called split. So when I do split here, and then I basically do new line of splitting, new line, and I say new line, then what happens is that you will find that this will get split into a list. Can you see this? This is going to get split into a list. And once this gets split into a list, I will simply store here, right? DSC1 list and DSC2 list, because then I can assign this to column number 1, right? So you probably would have understood it. So now let me just run this cell and I'll simply show you what is there inside DSC1 list V, and then DSC2 list, Control C, V, and then and then what I'm doing is I'm just setting this as column number 1 in the first data frame. Now after I have run this the full thing, and I'm going to show you how DF1 looks. The DF1 now looks very clean, and all the jumbled up cells are not going to spread out into the column. Now you have seen that how easy it is to basically get this going. Similarly, DF2 is also going to look similar. Now I have left with the third data frame, which is difficult to do using this method. So I'm going to show you how the third data frame looks like. So if I run this cell, you'll find that DF3 I am mapping, and what I'm doing. So what is this all about? What I'm showing you here. So let me just comment this, and I'm going to show you simply DF3. So if I show you DF3, you'll find that DF3 looks something like this, right? Which is similar in nature, because what I have done is this is a simple string, right, which are all jumbled up and separated out by new line character, right? So what I'm doing with using this particular code, I am basically using a lambda function. I'm splitting on new line, and I'm going to convert each and every item into a list. So now there will be a cell with a list. Simply when I run this, you'll see that now it has got converted into a list now. Instead, earlier it was a string. Now it has converted into a list because I have used a map function to convert into a list. So once having done that, once you see I've stored this in this data frame, then I'm using a function. And what this function is doing is, it is extracting out and expanding this data frame into multiple columns, right? So this function. So if I run this, you'll find that when I run this function, and I'm going just to have one and show you how this is going to get converted, DF3. So you'll find that the DF3 has got converted. All the columns of DF3 has been expanded into their respective rows, right? So this is very simple. So you run this, and you can basically get this converted into. Once having done that, what I'm now going to do, all the three data frames have been now converted into each in their respective proper form, which you have seen, DF1, DF2, and DF3. So for the next step, what I'm going to do, I'm going to assign those columns which I have defined here in the beginning part of my code, right? So that now these which are now shown unnamed will get converted into their respective columns. Now you come here and you see that these are going to get converted into respective columns, and I'm going to show you how one of the data frame looks, right? So this is how the data frame will look, DF1. You see the columns have been assigned. Similarly, DF2, the columns have been assigned here. You see DF2, the columns have been assigned, and then we have got DF3, the columns have been assigned here. You see DF3, the columns have been assigned. So all the data frame has been properly formatted, and now what I have to do is something little bit different, right? Which was not part of this processing, but I want to show you that how it is important. Why it is important? Let me go to the main PDF file. Now if you notice this PDF file, you will find that there are main categories. These are main categories, and they are subcategories, right? Can you see the subcategories? These main categories and subcategories are all totaled up here. You see, they're all totaled here. So these are all going to get added up. These are all going to get added up, and they are going to get total here. Now what I have to do is I have to basically extract out this main categories and subcategories into different columns, so that it becomes easy for me to process. Otherwise, if I just keep this in this particular form, then my flexibility is going to be very less, because what I want the main category to show up as a separate column. I want the subcategories to show up as a separate column. That is what my main objective is, which will make my life simple. Otherwise, it will be difficult. And let me show you what I basically mean. Let me go to the code. So you will see that this is a code which I am going to use to extract out main category and subcategories into different columns. And this is very simple to understand, and you can go through. what I've done is that I've written an article. I'm going to basically paste the link in the description, and you can go through the article and do it yourself, right? So when I run this code here, you'll find that, and I'm going to show you the dfed. So dfed is doing what? Let me just show you the full data frame after having run. So you can see that there are two columns which have been created. One is main category and another is subcategory. Now these main category and subcategories are created in such a way that what I am doing, I am basically checking for the Roman numerals. So whenever there is a Roman numerals, which means that it is a main category, right? If there is no Roman numeral, it starts with decimal 1, 2, 3, 4. That means this is subcategory, right? Anything other than Roman numeral. This is how I have defined the logic. Now there is another problem. The problem is that if you see that I don't want these rows, right? These rows which are aggregation of the subcategories here. You see? Because these are going to get duplicated, because I want to remove these rows, right? Only those rows which have got multiple subcategory, not these row, this row, because this doesn't have any subcategory. I don't want to remove them, but I want to remove this particular row which is an aggregation of all the row below, right? Because it is basically a redundant information. It does not give me any useful information, because this is anyway going to get populated here. These are going to get populated. These are actually getting mapped here to the individual subcategory. These are mapped here to the individual subcategory. So I don't need this. So for that, what I have to do, I have to remove these rows, and I'm running another small function. If I run this function, and if I run it, you will find that I'm going to show you here, and I'm going to show you df1 here, and you will find that now the data frame is quite a simple data frame with only those main categories which do not have any subcategories are written. Rest of the main categories are all shown up here, which are mapped to the subcategory. They are not individually listed out in these rows, right? So these are all gone. Then it is very simple processing. We don't do nothing. You simply meld this data frame, all the 3-digit data frame, and you use the description, the main category and the subcategories as IDs, right? And the var names as financial year, because financial year var names are here, and then the value name as value. So when I run this, you'll see that, and then I'm concatenating this data frame in a single data frame, right? So now this data frame is going to individually, this data frame will become in a vertical form. See? So this now data frame has been converted. We have description here, we have got main category here, you got subcategory, and then we have the financial year here and in the value here. Now they are all concatenated into a single data frame. Now if I show you the single data frame, the single data frame will look something like this. It's much cleaner now. Then final step is that you store this file in your disk and then you process it. So friends, I hope you probably understood that how this is done. So what I've done is I've written this article here, which you can go to my website and you can read this article. All the steps are listed out here. And you can basically see the code, the raw code also here, and you can use it for your own purpose. So thank you friends for your time. I'll come back with a new video next time. Thank you very much for listening.